Amidst the deafening noise of a hurried human existence, have you ever paused, retreated into a quiet corner, and asked yourself, why do we so desperately yearn to be understood, yet so meticulously hide the bleeding wounds within our souls? We drape ourselves in a cloak of resilience, adorn our faces with forced smiles, and then silently embrace our shattered pieces behind closed doors. You long for someone to see through that perfect facade, to hold the most fragile part of you, yet simultaneously you are terrified of exposing scars that have never truly healed. That is a heartbreaking paradox we almost all carry on our shoulders, on a journey that desperately needs gentleness, whispering comforts, and profound depths to heal itself.
Dear friend, try to remember, how many times have you stood before the void, hands clasped in the silent night, or knelt before the divine, only to utter a single desperate plea? Please, let my suffering end. That prayer carries the heavy weight of countless tears, of sleepless nights spent drowning in a sea of people, yet feeling completely, utterly alone. We beg for peace. We beg to avoid the storms. We inherently assume that happiness means the sky is always blue, and life is a carpet of roses without a single thorn. But then, answering those fervent pleas, it seems, is only the eternal silence of the universe. The storms still roll in. The ones we love the most still eventually leave. The expectations we poured our hearts into still shatter like sea foam. And to truly comprehend that silence, we need a perspective overflowing with metaphor, like a continuous stream of consciousness that is never fragmented.
And in those moments of profound despair, you begin to resent. You ask why fate is so remarkably cruel to you. You believe that pain is a sentence, a punishment, or a bitter mistake of creation meant just for you. There are nights when all things sink into a quiet void, that the heavy sighs from the depths of your consciousness finally echo. We have been taught how to succeed, how to rise, how to build glamorous images, but it seems no one has ever taught us how to embrace our own pain. That avoidance casts a massive shadow, a dark realm holding all the bitterness, trauma, and the sharpest, thorniest parts of ourselves we dare not acknowledge.
But please allow me to sit here with you in this moment, not to wipe away the tears that are falling, but to look straight into the abyss of that pain alongside you. Through the profound lens of Eastern philosophy, and specifically through the wisdom of Buddhism, there is a paradoxical truth that the world intentionally tries to evade. A truth that might shock you, but possesses enough power to shatter every dark shell imprisoning your soul. That truth is this: pain has never been a punishment. Pain, in essence, is a gift wrapped in the most abrasive and cruel exterior. It is the sacred and only gateway leading you into a complete spiritual awakening.
Close your eyes and contemplate this with me. If a seed were to forever lie comfortably in loose, warm soil, never bitten by the cold of winter, never compressed by the crushing weight of rocks, never having to strain and crack itself open to sprout, how could it ever become an ancient tree reaching for the sunlight? If iron ore were not melted in a roaring fire, not struck by a heavy hammer time and time again, how could it ever crystallize into a brilliantly sharp sword? We humans are exactly the same. We crave growth, we crave wisdom and untainted peace, yet we refuse to walk through the fire of our own forging.
Suffering is not spontaneously born just to wither your life away. It appears as a warning bell, a fierce awakening, when your soul is fast asleep in the illusions of the mortal realm. When you lose something you thought was your very life, that is when the universe is trying to teach you about letting go.
when you are hurt to the point where you can barely breathe, that is when life wants you to learn how to return and rely on the solid foundation within yourself, instead of clinging to fragile anchors on the outside.
Instead of denying it, instead of trying to run away through fleeting pleasures, stand still. Look directly into the eyes of sorrow. Allow yourself to break. Because only when the light pierces through the cracks of a shattered soul does authentic healing truly begin. You cannot heal a wound if you pretend it does not exist. You cannot find the light if you have never bravely walked through the absolute end of the darkness. Today, we do not sit here to soothe one another with empty consolations. We are here to turn the page to a new chapter of awareness together. Do not pray for the storm to stop blowing. Learn how to stand firm in the eye of the storm. Do not desperately beg for the pain to end. Learn to be grateful, because the very pain carving into your heart right now is performing its most sacred duty, awakening a sleeping Buddha within you.
Stepping through the doorway of acceptance, we begin a journey deep into the darkest parts of our consciousness, where pain has silently flowed for so long. Have you ever sat quietly by a river, watching the ripples endlessly chasing each other toward the infinite? That water never stops for even a single moment, just like the law of impermanence that governs all things in this human realm, day and night. Impermanence is not a heartless threat from the Creator, but a breathtakingly beautiful song of transformation. We suffer, writhing in despair, ultimately just because we are clinging to a foolish illusion, wanting to trap the flow of time in a narrow jar, wanting to forever keep what is destined to leave. Pain is born from the desperate grasping of hands trying to hold on to the moon's reflection in the water. Even though the moon's reflection is radiant, how can it be kept as a personal possession? When you understand the fragility of the illusion, you will realize that your current pain is merely a passing cloud drifting across the sky of your mind. It comes to pass, not to stay and consume your life force.
To face that passing cloud, Eastern wisdom hands us a priceless key named emptiness. When mentioning emptiness, do not rush to think of a soulless void or a cold surrender. Emptiness is all-encompassing. It is the forgiving spaciousness that holds everything, exactly like a still lake embracing the reflections of 1,000 stars. The pain within you, in and of itself, has no shape, no name, and no malice. It only becomes sharp and terrifying when we drape it in the cloak of judgment, of denial, and of fear. Look at the lotus flower rising amidst the dark swamp. The foul-smelling mud is not the enemy of the lotus. Rather, it is the purest nutrient that nourishes its elegant life. In the language of awakening, people call the process of facing this dark part shadow work. But since ancient times, the Buddhas have taught us the profound lesson of the mud and the lotus. Without mud, there would never be a fragrant lotus. Without the nights curled up in agonizing pain, there would be no empathetic soul and no vast heart capable of loving all paths of human life. Your pain is that thick layer of mud. Do not try to wash it away in resentment. Be still, sink your roots into it, and turn the bitterness into the lifeblood that opens your spiritual insight.
In the quiet space of your soul, try lighting a stick of agarwood incense. Do you see the fragile smoke swirling, weaving into the air, and then silently vanishing? That smoke is the manifestation of karma,
a miraculous law operating in every fraction of a second of our thoughts. Karma is not a deity sitting on high, judging sin and blessing, but the truest reflection of the seeds you have sown into the soil of your consciousness. When you treat pain with resentment, you are continuing to sow the seeds of suffering into the future. Conversely, when you embrace your wounds with compassion and understanding, you are using the cooling, purifying nectar to extinguish the fire that burns down your forest of merit. The current pain may be the result of countless intertwined past causes, but how you receive it in the present is the very cause that builds your future. You have the right to choose to embody the wind that fans the flames of anger, or to become the vast open space, allowing the incense smoke to dance freely before returning to the void. At this point, please take a deep breath, feeling the life force expanding in your chest. This stillness is the moment you realize that all phenomena are created by the mind. The external world is merely a mirror reflecting your inner reality. When you constantly beg the universe to lift your burden, you inadvertently strip away the self-generated power of an awakened being lying dormant within. The Buddha does not reside on a majestic gold-plated lotus throne. The Buddha resides right at the boundary of the tears rolling down your cheeks, and the moment you smile in tender mercy for your own fragility. Healing does not come from denying the bleeding. It comes from gently bandaging the wound with the silk of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the lantern lighting the way through the pitch-black night, helping you see through the selfless nature of all phenomena. When the proud ego bows its head to the laws of creation, the exhausting resistance vanishes, making way for an eternal, peaceful flow.
Pain awakens us from the long dream of ignorance. It shatters the solid illusions we once proudly built, leaving only the truest core of our soul bare. Even though this journey requires you to walk barefoot on the shattered glass of memories, every bleeding step is a step closer to the shores of liberation. Liberation does not lie in some distant miraculous nirvana, but is present right here, right now, when you can calmly lift a cup of bitter tea, take a sip, and feel the elegant sweetness lingering on the tip of your tongue. That is the divine truth of heaven and earth, the silent call from the absolute depth of your being, earnestly waiting for you to answer.
However profound the philosophy might be, it sometimes needs a humble anchor to rest within the listener's mind. Please close your eyes, relax the shoulders that have been bearing the exhaustion of long days, and let the flow of imagination carry us back to a pristine, mythic space. We are not traveling to the fog-draped, snow-capped peaks of the distant Himalayas, but returning right to the tranquil southern lands, listening to the eternal crashing waves tell an invaluable symbolic tale about the ultimate transformation of suffering.
The story tells of a man who once reigned at the pinnacle of prestige, enveloped in silk and the world's high regard, but overnight was stripped of everything. He was exiled to a nameless, desolate island, where there was only barren white sand, scorching sun and wind, and maddening waves howling day and night. Not a single roof, not a shadow of another human, not a glimmer of hope. In the eyes of the world, it was the most brutal death sentence. It was the deep abyss of punishment, the absolute end of damnation. That brutality is exactly like the moment life strips away what is most precious to you, the person you love, the career you painstakingly built, or your very faith in the fairness of creation. The feeling of drowning, of being betrayed, and of absolute isolation swallows your entire being.
In those first days on the desolate island,
Perhaps that man also tasted the bitter salt of despair. Surrounding him was only a thick, suffocating space of dead ends. The vast ocean seemed to mock the smallness and helplessness of a human life. There were times, amidst the pitch-black night, facing the mute void and the growling of the sea, when he felt the pain tearing at his flesh. Had he chosen to fall to his knees and scream, blaming heaven and earth for the injustice, or desperately thrown himself into the crashing white foam to end his agony, his story would have forever sunk into oblivion at the bottom of the sea. That agony, without the guiding light of wisdom, would have become a permanent grave burying the human soul.
But right at the darkest hour of survival, when all the proud armor of his ego completely collapsed, a miraculous awakening sprouted. He stopped begging for a miracle from the outside. He stopped praying for a lost ship to come and save him. He accepted the desolate island. He accepted the absolute loneliness. He fully embraced the darkness of adversity, transforming the barren island into his own sanctuary of spiritual practice. He realized that suffering does not lie in the circumstances, but in the resistance of the mind. When resistance ceases, all things naturally become still.
And then a true miracle arrived, not in the form of a savior, but in the shape of a strange black seed dropped onto the empty sand by a flock of seabirds. To the ignorant eye, it was just a tiny, worthless anomaly amidst endless gravel. But with a consciousness washed clean through the fire of ultimate suffering, he saw the entire life of the universe within that dark seed. He carefully buried the seed in the salty sand. He watered it with the sweat of his grueling labor, and perhaps with the tears of his deep empathy.
That seed, remarkably, did not require the fertile soil of a glamorous land. It surged upward powerfully, right amidst the harshness of the burning sun and toxic winds. Its roots dug deep into the heart of the island, drawing up the barrenness to grow. Time flowed to the rhythm of breathing. The vines spread, blossomed, and bore large fruits with deep green, resilient shells. When that strange fruit was split open, a brilliant, vibrant red light appeared, bringing a cool, intensely sweet nectar, powerful enough to quench the most burning thirst of human life.
Dear friend, the image of that watermelon named after my Aunt Yem is not just a folk legend told to children. It is a grand spiritual cipher about the transformation of pain. The rough, hard green shell on the outside is the harsh reality of life, the hardships, prejudices, and storms we are forced to face. But hidden deep beneath that abrasive exterior is the vibrant red, sweet, and juicy core. That is the untainted peace, the boundless compassion, the radiant wisdom, distilled and forged from the very days of writhing in agony.
If my Aunt Tim had never been exiled to the desolate island, he would have forever remained an official living in an illusion of silk, never knowing the indomitable power hidden within him. The island was not a sentence of punishment, but a blessing of creation. The pain of loss is not a destructive abyss, but a springboard for the soul to escape the prison of dependency. Thanks to that endless darkness, he found the light of truth. Thanks to the absolute barrenness, he created a sweet fruit of immortal vitality, not only saving himself, but sowing the seeds of hope for everyone in the world.
Look back at the pain currently present within you. It is your own desolate island. The trauma, the abandonment, or the feeling of boundless helplessness is the salty sand you are standing on with bleeding bare feet. Do not rush to run away.
Do not cry and beg someone to take you away from this place. Because right here, amidst the ashes of shattered hopes, the universe has dropped and is dropping a seed of awakening for you.
That seed might be a moment you suddenly realize the impermanence of human life. That seed might be a second you understand the root cause of your inner torment. Your responsibility is not to extinguish the storm, but to patiently nurture that seed with the very stillness of your heart. When you have the courage to embrace the wound, using the blood and tears of understanding to water the barren land in your soul, you will harvest the sweet fruit of liberation. Pain, when illuminated by the light of mindfulness, will naturally transform into the most miraculous nectar to nourish life.
This life is never at fault for bringing you storms. The only fault lies in our refusal to learn the lesson the storm brings. When you overcome your own desolate island, you will carry the posture of an absolutely free person. No more fear, no more avoidance. You will view adversity not as an enemy to be destroyed, but as a grand teacher, a benefactor who shattered the fog of ignorance, guiding you back to the greatest version of your true self.
Returning from the island of consciousness, carrying the sweet aftertaste of understanding, it is time for us to take our first steady steps into reality. However transcendent Eastern wisdom may be, however magnificent the symbolic stories are, if they cannot touch every breath of our dusty, everyday lives, then they are all just distant mirages. In the midst of this noisy human realm, every morning you wake up, you still have to face the endless grind of making a living, the harsh judgments, the binding prejudices, and sometimes betrayal from the very people you once trusted entirely. The storm still waits on the porch, and the greatest question posed is, how can we apply this letting go? How can we maintain stillness amidst the 10,000 changes of life?
Let us begin with the simplest thing, observing your breath right in the middle of adversity. Right now, when a painful memory suddenly rushes back, making your chest tighten, please do not rush to push it away. Do not try to wear the mask of an invincible warrior. True resilience does not lie in how many blows of fate you can brace yourself against, but in your courage to relax your body, allowing yourself to be vulnerable in the most complete way. Close your eyes, take a deep breath. Let the air fill the bleeding, empty spaces in your soul. Acknowledge the pain that is present. Call its name gently, the way you would welcome an old friend. That silent observation is the very marrow of letting go. We often confuse letting go with apathy, surrender, or indifference towards life. But no, understanding the Dharma is to live more deeply, not to run away. Letting go is when you hold a cup of hot tea in your hand. You fully feel its warmth and aroma. But when the teacup unfortunately slips from your grasp and shatters on the floor, you do not scream and desperately claw at the broken shards. You look at the pieces, knowing that the karmic connection with the cup has ended here, and you gently use a broom to sweep them away. The pain in life is just like that broken teacup. People treat you poorly, that is their karma. You're holding on to hatred, tormenting yourself because of someone else's mistakes. That is the true poison, destroying your life force. Let them go. Forgiveness is not a favor you grant to the one who hurt you. It is the greatest unbinding you bestow upon your own soul.
Every pain you walk through is not a full stop, but the point of origin for a deeper, more compassionate version of yourself. You will realize that all the storms out there
can only knock down a tree with shallow roots, but cannot shake a solid mountain of rock. That solidity, that eternity of consciousness, is built from the immeasurable fractions of a second you decide to turn inward instead of looking outward. When someone throws a cruel word at you, instead of immediately reacting with anger, take a step back in your mind. Look deep into the eyes of the person erupting in rage. Behind those bitter words is ultimately just a soul enduring much trauma, craving validation, struggling in their own swamp of ignorance. When you use the eyes of compassion to observe, the anger within you will dissolve, making way for a vast, expansive empathy.
We are travelers sharing a train called human life, where everyone carries their own heavy luggage on their shoulders. Some hide it under the seat, some clutch it tightly to their chest, and some let it crush them to the point of suffocation. And I know, somewhere in this present moment, as the darkness slowly descends, or as the dawn just breaks, your heart is heavy with a sorrow that has never been named, a helplessness that cannot be shared with anyone, a desire to be understood among billions of people, yet still feeling utterly alone.
In this very moment, is there a sorrow making your heart heavy because it remains misunderstood? Is there a wound still bleeding that you constantly have to use a smile to cover up? Please leave a few lines in the comment section below as a way to pour out your heart and let the wind carry your troubles away. Treat this space as a quiet temple where all judgment stops behind the door. You do not need to write perfect words, just be honest with your own brokenness. Every word you leave behind is not just a step forward in your journey of self-healing, but also a lit candle, warming the kindred souls who are wandering lost out there.
Sharing does not make you weaker. It proves an extraordinary bravery. The bravery to face it, the bravery to expose it, and the bravery to let go. When a sadness is spoken aloud, its gripping power over your mind is halved. You will feel as light as a gray cloud that has just finished pouring its heavy rain to make way for a clear sky. At the absolute end of pain, when we realize the fragility of human life, we find each other again in the most sacred bond. Peace does not come from avoiding the storms, but from calmly walking straight through the eye of the storm with the serene smile of awakening. The journey we have just experienced together is not an attempt to escape reality, but a profound return, a return to the still and primal core of ourselves. In the art of creating magnificent paintings or digital visual layouts, a master artist never greedily fills every inch of the canvas. They always carefully and subtly preserve an invisible void, sometimes leaving exactly 1/3 or 1/4 of the frame entirely empty to serve as a sanctuary for light, for air, and for the deepest messages to fully reveal themselves. The human mind is just as grand and requires the exact same delicate composition. If you constantly cram it with worries, heavy resentments, and endless desires, your mind will become a chaotic, suffocating, and dark canvas. Allow yourself to let go. Intentionally declutter and leave vast empty spaces within your heart. It is precisely in that serene emptiness that luminous wisdom has enough room to shine, and peace can freely sing its miraculous song. And then you will clearly see that all suffering, all bleeding wounds, or the stumbles that seemed to strip away your entire life are actually just inevitable touch points on a circle of birth and death. We walk from the origin of our ignorance, carrying bitter fragments into the forging fire of this blurred human realm.
Tears fall to wash our vision clear. Pain is present to shatter the proud ego, so that after the absolute end of long, stormy nights, the only thing remaining in the eyes of an awakened being is the light of immeasurable compassion, the eternity of truth that is never worn down by time or the decay of the world. Pain has flawlessly completed its sacred mission. It does not kill you, it resurrects you in a new form, majestic, still, and immortal. From this moment on, please do not clasp your hands towards the void to pray for a life without storms. Clasp your hands to express profound gratitude for every ache that has visited your life. Be grateful for the betrayal that taught you the value of independence. Be grateful for the loss that taught you the law of impermanence. Be grateful for the long nights crying into your pillow that forged a heart large enough to forgive all the tragedies of humanity. You are no longer a victim of fate. You are the creator, the Buddha, who is step by step blossoming a gentle smile amidst the dark swamp.
Our quiet gathering today shall momentarily close, but the flow of awakening will forever resonate. If these whispered words have coincidentally touched a hidden corner of your soul that needed comfort, please leave a subscription and a like. Do not view them as soulless numbers in a virtual world, but see them as a karmic thread connecting fellow travelers on this spiritual path. See it as an invisible embrace we give each other amidst the rushing stream of life, so you know that on the journey back to relying on yourself, you never have to walk alone. I pray that the empty spaces in your soul are always filled with light. I wish you a path ahead that, despite the thorns, always maintains peaceful footsteps and a smile that sees clearly through all karmic ties.